I'm Chris Oppenheim. People call me Church. I'm the owner of Interstate Inc. in Los Angeles, California. We cater almost exclusively to recovering addicts, and we have a program in place to help artists with addiction issues get their lives and careers back on track. We're trying to raise awareness, educate others, and reduce the negative stigmas associated with addiction. We want everyone to know there is hope, we do recover, and most importantly, even broken crayons still color. Thanks for tuning in to today's episode of the Broken Crayon Show here at Interstate Inc. Today's guest was actually a tattoo artist himself back in the day. These days, he's acquired, what, a master's degree?
Master's in Healthcare Administration, Leadership. A couple other degrees along the way.
Talk about one extreme to the other.
Yes, sir.
Wow. What was it like?
What was it like? Getting a master's degree?
Let's go back even further.
Sacrifice. Even
back.
further, a degree in addiction psychology, or a degree in social justice, or a degree in theology. Even further, those are all the things that, some of the fruits of my desire to have a better understanding of, what happened, not just to me, but what continues to happen to so many people like us. If we're going to wind it back, we'll wind it way back.
All the way back.
All the way back.
Yeah. Briefly, spend like 20, 30 minutes on just like...
on the what happened. There's this whole process, I think, that happens to so many of us. And it's just the human condition of the, prosper or survival mode. And depending what we're born into it's going to dictate, the direction of survival or prosperity, and life happens and that trajectory changes. And so I was born into, my brothers and sisters may disagree, but, my dad was a military man, and my mom was, she had many talents, and she was, a young beauty queen, and, a master chef, and just this amazing
She was
artist.
A beauty queen, so you got your dad's looks?
I did, yes, thank you. And thanks. Yeah, thanks for noticing.
Couldn't resist.
Right? No, many can't, and or don't. And so yeah, she had her deficits too, and she was emotionally handicapped and disabled in so many ways. And now, having gotten clean and sober, and having tried to better understand what happened to her, so I could see how it affected me and my life. I grew to understand that my grandpa's mom had came here from Germany. So I'm German and Sioux Indian, but when they came, so I got a perfectly blend of two closed off, warring cultures deep within my soul and DNA, right? And so, but he had, he was the oldest surviving child of 7, and so his mom had taken all the kids. They were born in Germany, came to Dearborn, and his mom fell to alcoholism and that alcoholic insanity, and she took all the kids out to Lake Superior and started drowning them one after another, and he was the youngest first. Jesus and so Christ. I think a lot of that, at age 13 he started his own electrical business. Fast forward, he was at the end, he was a very successful, functioning alcoholic. A lot of that transitioned into my mom.
Makes sense.
Right. And but then on the other end of the spectrum, my dad, who was a farm boy from Iowa, who 17 years old, went off to the Vietnam War and did a couple tours there, came back, and he met my mom, and within 2 weeks they were married. And
Nice.
living between, you know, LA here in the valley, San Fernando Valley, where she was born and raised, and around the Sioux City, Iowa area where he was from. And, you know, the insanity continues. You know, it's kind of odd I can't imagine being in a relationship with a woman for 6 months and she's ready to have a baby. Like, how the hell does that work? Something physiologically is going on. So when my dad met my mom, she was pregnant, and she didn't know it. And so that process, you know, of like, how are we going to deal with this, you know? And at the time, in the era, the zeitgeist, the feeling, the emotion of our nation with, you know, people who were coming back from war, Vietnam was not nice. So he got spat on, couldn't get a job, blah, blah, blah. And so they decided to give my older brother up for adoption. And they did. And, you know, they're living out of my grandparents' farmhouse basement, dirt floors, growing fruits and vegetables, trying to stay alive for a little while. And, you know, my dad's a man's man. He couldn't put up with that, you know, for long. So he got another job, joined the military, but he joined a different branch of the military. So a year and a half later, right around the time I'm being born, my mom reads about this major abuse of this child in the community. And you know, these people are well off, a doctor, lawyer type couple. And she knows them, and she knows that child to be her own. And so she goes and gets my brother back.
Oh, wow.
And so, you know, adoption and all those things are different than they are now. Red tape, blue tape, any tape, who knows? Just a whole different setup, right? So,
Alexa, stop.
Cool.
Sorry.
I like voice commands. Vincent, shut up.
Sorry about that.
No, don't worry. And so, yeah, you know, I think that kind of, that was a lot of the framework for my early childhood. Dad was in the military. By the time he had passed, he was in, you know, multiple branches of the military, and worked for the government and didn't work for the government, and got hurt and didn't get hurt. You know, just, and so I thought life was really good. I would hear my dad's motorcycle come and go, and I knew that he would be coming home or
Did
leave.
you follow and join the military yourself?
No, I didn't get a chance to do that. I went to prison instead. You know, I drugs and alcohol after, I think, just to give a little bit more.
That shit lands you in prison?
It can, yeah. Not for everybody. I think it can, you know, I think drugs and alcohol can put you in prison. It might even keep some people alive for a while. I think it did all that for me. And long story short, mom and dad divorced, and my hero was replaced by a villain. Right? And, you know, that great power struggle of prosperity as a child became survival mode. And this man was mentally, physically abusive. He was a drunkard, and he became sexually abusive, more toward my older brother and I. And my whole life I've been a keeper of secrets, because I think I was 8 or 9 when my sister and I had discovered a bunch of paperwork, 2 birth certificates about my older brother. My mom swore me to secrecy, and I would challenge her on it every 6 months to a year. And so it was the day we had her funeral and her service that I told my brother that he had been adopted. And with my hands in my pockets, you know, I took a shot to the chin, and he split my chin, and I took a knee, and I got back up. And I said, you need to go in and ask Dad. You need to go in and ask Grandma, because I was accused of being a liar, and I'm tired of holding these secrets. And so my whole life I've been the family kind of counselor, you know, the holder of trust and secrets. And he and I, my older brother and I, spent many years, many attempts, many times defending ourselves late at night, early in the day. And as we grew, my stepdad would come in with one hand in his pants, other hand out, challenging us to fight. And, and we fought. So I've been fighting everything and everyone my whole life. My dad, first thing that my dad ever gave me as a gift was a set of boxing gloves, and he taught us how to use them. And we tried hard with that, man, until the point where we got old enough and strong enough, and he got hospitalized a few times. And by the time my mom died, she had been married 5 or 6 times. I gave up count, and I had resolved myself that I would never be getting married. I would never be following suit.
Which is funny because I know your wife.
Yes,
Never say never.
Never say never. Well, I said that once because I came home. I came home when I was 11, and this is the day of vinyl and record players and needles, and there was Rolling Stones Tattoo You album cover at the front of 1,000 different records. And I said, "Mom, what is that?" And she's, "Oh, that's tattooing." And I'm like, "I want that." And she goes, "Oh, honey, never do that to yourself."
That's a horrible idea.
I said, "Okay, honey, Mom, I won't never tattoo my face." So I've gotten pretty close, but not the face. So
I swore I'd never do it. I didn't get my face tattooed until I was already tattooing for 15 years.
Right. Yeah. No, it makes sense, and so I am a tattoo in my face. So that's my never story.
I can change that for you.
Yeah, I know you can. You could.
I got you.
You're a man of many changes for many people. And so, yeah, man, the recovery at a certain point, like, the insanity. I had my first drink when I was 9 at a family reunion, and it was fun. You know what I mean? And,
yeah, I do know what you mean.
And then by 11, I'm smoking weed, and I got caught at another family get together. I was like, the aunts and uncles had the old pot tray. I was born in 71. I'm over 50. I've lived through a few eras, and the old Cosmopolitan. I can remember the Cosmopolitan pot tray with mostly stems and seeds and little sticks and this weird acrylic.
Because it was 100 years ago, and you couldn't just go to a store and buy it.
No, right? They didn't have. Yeah, I couldn't go to get a drink and look and be, oh, there's my hemp CBD, or cross to the tattoo shop and walk 15 yards down and walk in and get my medical marijuana when I'm physically sound. Anyway. So first drink when I was 9, drug when I was 11. When I snuck in and stole the little plastic acrylic bong and went behind the trash cans at my grandma's house, and I tried to smoke this bong hit, 12 years old, without instruction or help, and I drank most of the water. I finally got it going, and like a good Indian, I was sending up smoke clouds, and so my uncles rolled over like, "What are you doing over here, man?" And
right.
So I was busted, So it became fun with problems. And then, as things progress.
Yeah, I made a bong out of a wiffle ball bat. Used Kool-Aid. The Kool-Aid got hot and burned my throat.
Yeah, man. All that insanity. And so
yeah, man.
It's wild that framework really set me up for, 12 years old. I ran away. First time I ran away, I was 8 with my cousin Joseph, and we stole $10 from my mom. And I think we walked 7 miles through the corn, and we got to like what was the name of the old cheeseburger place? It's not like Carl's Jr.'s, but something like that in the Midwest. And I heard my dad's feet, And I looked at my cousin like, "Is that my dad?" And he's like, "Yep." So he got the call, and he collected us. He brought us home, and we knew the rules. There was 30 people, pants down, ass up, grab the ankles, and take a whooping. You know what I mean? So I've had a high tolerance for pain my whole life: mental, emotional, physical, sexual pain. And not that I'm resistant to it, I'm aware of it. Not that I like it, I'm cognitive of it. And again, add more framework to disassociating myself from people, places, and things that are healthy. 12 years old, Hollywood, man. Rat patrol, skateboard with a hammer handle, and it turned into a mace. Start robbing and
a dope habit.
And a dope habit, yeah. Did I forget that? Like it was fun with problems. Now problems, or another way to say it more clinically, if you will, would be I went from use to abuse to straight dependency at a very young age, and anything under the sun I could get my hand on, we used, and we stole, and I would return home, and my sisters or brothers would put out little care packets, and so I would time it, and then eventually I found my way home. And my grandma, God bless her, she was the president of the LAUSD PTA for, I don't know, like centuries, it seems. And, yeah, but
They still have that.
they do. But she, Grandma Mickey is the one who brought Alateen into the schools, and I think she understood that I had a small issue, and so I think I was 15, and she busted me out the house with a handful of kids doing what we do, right? But mind you, I was already, I was successful in some things: sports, music, art, literature, anything that took me away from the home. I found favor, fun, and flair in, and I usually exceeded at all those things. State championship wrestling, sponsored by Alva and Magna Skate skateboarding, all this shit as a teenager. Yeah.
I remember that name.
Yeah, he's still around doing the drill. And but then you add a drink, you add some drugs, you add some chaos, you add some conflict, and you're always going to find me right there in the center of it. I remember being the youngest kid at the anti-club every night for 6 months. And I remember somebody finally said to me, like, "Are you supposed to be in school tomorrow?" And I remember thinking about it. I'm like, "Oh yeah," like my mom at that point, married but living single, master chef. She just worked to keep a house over us. And I remember one time the ambulance coming and taking her out, and I was like, "Oh, reality check! Like, what's going on with Mom?" She called the ambulance on herself because her heart was hurting. She was having chest pain. And when she came back, it was like, "You kids are causing me all this stress. I can't figure out like who you are, what you're doing, why you do it. And it's killing me. And I'm over here killing myself." And it's like, she didn't understand that that it was her weed bag and her slim purse that I was taking from every day. When we finally got into the nuts and bolts of,
I was
like
stealing coke from my father when I was 12.
Yeah. I wasn't quite there on the coke with her yet. You know what I mean? I remember the first time I did cocaine, I was 13 years old, and I didn't know what it was. It was a black tray, and it said Coca-Cola or Coke. It said cocaine, but it was scripted in the font, looked like Coca-Cola. And I went to take a rail, and I blew it out. And the guy was like, "Oh, hell no." Who is this kid? And so, I think I learned how to shoot it a year later. So, I know how to progress nicely. Long story short, all sorts of insanity and fun. 16 years old, I'd opened a tattoo shop. 16 years old, I was running dope for, bikers and Hells Angels and all sorts of, not that they do that, but,
You did?
I don't think so. Not anymore. I don't see Patches. I don't see, those guys doing that.
Family oriented now.
Yeah, they're all right. I did have a lot of fun doing a couple of fundraisers for different clubs, tattooing. I remember one time somebody important in that club's sister came to me with this big old balloon. and says, "Take a hit off this." I'm up in Dali City, right?
Nitrous.
A little, oh, nitrous, yeah. So too. And I took a big old, and I had two, and she was holding it. She was hot. I was holding 2 beers, double fisted, and I took a hit. Band playing, everything. There's probably 300 people there. I took that whole fucking thing. I didn't really know. I'd never done nitrous before, but I wanted to do it all because that's how I like to get high.
Yeah, all or nothing.
Fucking, I came to with, and I had squeezed not just the life out of the beers, but my hands into the beers, and I fell back and I cracked my head, and the concrete I hit so hard was out. You know what I mean? And I got up and I was like, "What was that? I want some more," And that is the nature of how I get high, how I drink, how I drug, to the point of like problems, dependency, what's next. And yeah, things happen.
It's an understatement.
Things
isn't it?
happen. Yeah. And I can remember the day I was sitting home going through this, 100-gallon bag of weed that just was rolled down from Humboldt County, and weighing out some coke, and there's a knock at the door. And I'm like, oh shit. And it's my girlfriend's friend. Now, I know she smokes weed, but she doesn't know everything I do. They don't know what I'm doing, I don't think. I think now, after she knocked on the door, she's like, hey, she's pregnant. She wants some money. She has to have an abortion. And I'm like, what? She's pregnant? And that was the first time where morally, spiritually, I took such a deep hit that something had shifted in me where I couldn't fight it. I couldn't defend it. I couldn't name it, and it's where grief, I think that first word, my first real introduction into grief happened. And because see, most of my life up to that point, I have been trying to escape. I have been trying to divert. I have been trying to remove myself from people, places, and things that would cause me emotional, anything emotional that challenged me emotionally. It was just easier to stay busy. Art was my first love.
Same.
I can remember the first real drawing I did. It was of a giraffe.
Two things that matter in life: art and drugs, and I gave one of them up.
Right? Yeah. Yeah. And that was my comfort, and that's what I stayed busy doing for a very, very long time. I remember I was at away maybe in Iron City doing a tattoo convention. I'd been gone for months, and I had this overwhelming sense of doom. So I called home, and I called my mom's. I'm a high chair, thumb sucking mama's boy, even at 270 pounds. You know what I mean? And I call Mom, what's going on? How's everything? They're like, Lance is missing. I'm like, Lance is missing? I'll be home. I'm flying home. So I've always had this kind of a spiritual, even though unbeknownst, just intuition, maybe. I don't know what else to call it. I joke around and say intuition is my superpower these days. And so I flew home, and after being home within a few hours, there was a knock on the door, and there's a couple detectives saying that they'd found my brother Lance. He had overdosed and died. And this was my sister's husband, but he was my brother. He was a brother-in-law, but a brother. And he was an old godfather, a punk. He was just like you or I. He was hardcore, I love that man, and I love the kids. And I remember, and my sister she fell off the deep end in drugs. She was already in and out of the deep end, but she just went off the scales. And so I remember being in the back.
Easy to do.
Yeah, I remember being in the backyard, having this conversation with 5 kids from ages 5 to 4 to 3 to 2 to like 9 months, and trying to convince these kids that I love to death, that there is a heaven, that their dad is there, even though I don't believe it. I don't believe a word of it. You know what I mean? But I will, that 80-20 that we talked about earlier, I will fabricate a few small details for the sake of someone else's sense of, trust, belief, or awe or comfort, and I was doing it that day for those kids. And then it was a short time after that, my mom woke up one day to go to school, and she had an aneurysm. And I remember there's many times where, I would stop by my mom's house, and because I'm an all-night kind of guy, I have about 4 a.m. when I, because my addiction, it started with alcohol, and alcohol was always kind of involved, but there was all sorts of things that I wrapped around that drink and drugs. So my drink bone is so connected to my drug bone, and she had taught me, because I would stop by late.
It's a cycle. I can't get too drunk. I gotta wake up with some of this here coke or whatever the fuck.
Oh yeah. Oh man, I would smoke some weed, bang some coke, bang some heroin. I was
back to the alcohol when I put myself on what I considered was an even keel.
Oh yeah. I remember sliding face down into clubs some nights, like to go get drunk. I'm like, they're not letting me in. You know what I mean?
Right.
I'm not even a club guy, but you know, I know there's alcohol and there's girls in there. You know what I mean? But maybe I was a club guy. I don't know. But then my mom had this aneurysm and she passed, and I suffered an emotional rearrangement, and I didn't know it at the time, and it really made me start to value who I was as a person. Because mind you, at that time, I'd already been to prison. I went to prison very young, because when that girl came and told me she was having an abortion, the next, bless you, bless you again, she went and had that abortion, and obviously she cut me loose for a little bit, and I went out a couple days later, and I went to my friend's house down the street, and there was these three brothers. It was Frank, Johnny, and Jonathan. I mean, right? Name the youngest one Jonathan, oldest one Johnny, the middle one Frank. Anyway, but I went to their house and I was like, I want to feel how you guys are feeling, right? I want to get lost. I want to smoke some coke, because these guys were doing pounds, and they would just give me an ounce in here and there to play with. And I'd already been moving some weight for these other guys, and so I knew the game, and it had been calling. And so I went to their house, and I think we smoked probably an ounce of coke over the next 15 hours, and I didn't come home. I didn't come home.
Rightfully. So.
I came back, borrowed a gun at one point, and I started doing burglaries and robberies. And I remember after that happened, between ages 16 and 17, I hadn't eaten in I don't know how long, but I was in an alley smoking coke, and my gut turned. You know what I mean? I was like, oh my God, I had to take a shit, and I shit worms. You know, and I wiped my ass with newspaper. Thank God Skinny Vinny wasn't there. He might have licked it.
That's
Sorry,
on
Vinny.
Patreon.
Sorry, bro. You said it. You set yourself up for that one. And so, and I remember thinking in that moment.
He looked up with a really disgusting smile, by the way. Let's not discount that.
No, let's not. And I remember thinking for a minute, just a second, a flash, like I might have a problem here. Right?
Maybe.
Right? Because I mean, there was worms, active living worms in my feces, and I disregarded it. Like I disregarded everything and everyone at that point. And at the time, it felt like a mistake when I had gotten caught, you know, for robbing somebody very famous and burglarizing their house and taking their car and all sorts of insanity. And I got caught, and I was like, so I went to prison, and very young, 17, 18 years old, you know, whatever it was, 18 on my way to prison. And one of the first visits I get is from that same girl in the jail cell while I'm fighting the case. And she's like, I'm pregnant again. And so, you know, she comes to visit me in prison, and she brings me this young, beautiful boy. And she set him in my arm, and he fit right between my hand and my elbow. And I remember having another kind of one of those emotional rearrangements.
Is that the first time you saw him?
Yeah, first time.
First time I saw my oldest daughter I was locked up. Special visit. It was county jail, but which is even worse. You can't hold them through glass.
Yeah, so I relate. I got to hold him. I was scared to death of not of him, but of what I would do to him. That I would ruin his life. That, you know, the insanity of my life would, you know, carry off into his. And, you know, mind you, she came from, you know, the other side of town, the other side of the tracks. You know, people in her family were, you know, not that mine weren't, but they were college educated and, you know, big city attorneys and all sorts of, you know,
Fancy schmancy.
a lot of fancy stuff going on, you know, with, you know, their mom and dad stayed married, they owned houses. You know, my mom worked her ass to the bone and just always rented her whole life. And, you know, I mean, I was the guy that stole my mom's international scout, right? Just, I borrowed it in my mind to go get drugs. And then 4 days later, I hid it down the street and walked in like, hi, Mom. Where the hell's my mom? You stole it? No, I didn't. Denial, denial, denial. You know, and so when my mom had passed and over,
Wasn't me.
yeah, wasn't me. 3 hours later, my sister comes walking in, Sister Gretchen. Hey, Mom, your car's down the street, 2 blocks away. I just seen it. What's it doing over there? You know, and like, you know, I
Ask
kept,
Vincent.
yeah, I kept that chemical, you know, shield up for so long that nothing broke through it until, you know, my brother died, my mother died, and I was in that same backyard where I was explaining to these kids, you know, mind you, I'd gone to prison a couple times now. Mind you, I am the start-stop expert, right? Drugs and alcohol are not the problem. I take a drink, I do some drugs, and I get captured. I take some drink, I do some drugs, I get captured. But between these points of capture, I
Captured or rescued?
Perception, sir. You know, and which is a form of reality, a form. So is insanity. And now I think I'm still on the inside many times, knocking, hoping to get out, as the great artist Rumi had said. You know, but in the backyard, you know, trying to explain to these kids, you know, I had in that same backyard a spiritual experience. I had a couple spiritual experiences, and I mean, bright light, burning bush, kind of like radical spiritual experiences, and they altered my whole reality, my whole existence, my whole being. 5/5/2004, I awoke, I arose clean and sober, and I knew that day I would never get hired, loaded again. Mind you, there was 40 pounds of meth in the garage and about $500,000 of cash. None of it was mine. You know, the 11 motorcycles, 6 cars, and the house, none of it was mine. It was all acquired through
certain means.
Yeah. You know, the 3-inch roll of car titles, none of it was mine. And the feds were hot on my tail. Because I was doing things, and I was parts of things that I had become,
You thought you could get away with?
that I thought I could get away with. Because I remember at my whole life, I wanted to be that person that from ages 10 to, you know, 32, I wanted to be the person that no one fucked with. Because see, I had a good heart. I was raised in a good family, but then, you know, loss, grief, this noise, you know, and I understand it to be rage. I understand it to be distrust. It was just this sound would come into my soul, and I wanted to tear things apart. And that noise never turned off. And when it talked to me through the sound of addiction, chaos, fucking and fighting,
Drama.
everything, and drama. And in some regards, it made me very.
If it wasn't dramatic, we'd make it. So
True. Oh, very true. I think I still hold that same talent. And
mountains out of molehills.
every time. I was more of a silent type. I would be my favorite thing, my favorite phrase for many years was just whatever. Fuck them and feed them bullshit. Fuck them and feed. Fuck you and feed your dog shit.
I have Dilligath.
Yeah.
It doesn't look like I give a fuck.
Right.
Tattooed across my knuckles.
Same. Yeah. So I awoke that day on 5/5/2004, and the night before, and I don't want to miss this point, you know, on the night before, I was wearing this blue overall jumpsuit, mechanic suit. I still wear it most every Halloween as Michael Myers because he is my Michael Myers is my shadow. I love that Michael Myers never has to run. He always captures what he's going for. I get that. And some pink bunny slippers. I think I had a big fat camel chew in and a Copenhagen chew and a camel cigarette going. And at the time I was doing a reconstruction on a 1997. What was it? It was a 97 Z1 Corvette chassis, and I was putting a 66 truck body on. So I had things welding and going on, all sorts of, and I was on this creeper, one of those things you lay on the ground, and it just started raining, dark rain, perfect day, and it just grew black. It started raining and flooding, and I was 6 inches face from the ground. My cigarette went out, and I wept. I mean, I wept. Like all that stuff I've been containing. I think all things are living, all things are moving, all things emoting. Like it doesn't just die, it gets displaced or it gets stored. And I had been storing it for a very long time.
Oh yeah, the cork will pop.
Right, and it popped, man. I ran out of room. I wept, and in that experience, an earthworm, right, came out of the water, and it was about a few inches away from my face, and I'm staring at this worm, weeping, it's crying, and I heard that still small voice, that confusion, that chaos, that sound, that fucking say to me like, I am living up to my worth, what about you? So my spiritual animal is an earthworm. Not anything cool like a hawk or a dragon, Not a pit bull dog with fucking gnashing teeth, but a worm. A fucking worm.
It's fitting.
And so it's symbolic because my mom's dad, my grandpa John, Johann, used to reference my stepdad, the abuser, as the worm, spineless, so when that happened, like everything that I had all those reckonings, if you will, fell into place, and I got up, I went in my room, I laid down, and I woke up the next morning, and I've been clean and sober ever since. And that didn't mean I instantly became whole. To the contrary, mon frere. I found myself stuck right in the middle of psychopathy and spirituality. Like I started playing God because I had a spiritual experience. I thought maybe, who knows? I was the resurrection. You know what I mean?
Yeah, unfortunately, I know exactly what you mean. I spent some time in the psych hospital with the assumption that I was the second coming.
Yeah, I get that. Well, I've been there, and so I 7 days clean and sober. My uncle shows up at my house because, mind you, my sister had just left, and she knocked on the door, and she didn't recognize me because now, my daily habit, my nutritional, my diet of drugs and alcohol, because it will keep you alive. There's a beer, there's a sandwich in every beer. And I would, and there's a worm at the bottom of every bottle of tequila, like
mezcal.
Yeah, I loved it. And so, Cinco de Mayo, 2004, I got struck clean and sober. And my sister stopped by within a week and to check on me, and she didn't recognize me. And she told my uncle, and my Uncle Carl came over and he's like, "You're going with me. You got to come to my house for a while. I need to help you out." And I went. What he said that day made sense, and I needed someone to make sense. And so I went to his house, and he had a garage, and behind the garage he had like a workbench, and it was kind of a part-time party room and workshop and couches and a bed in there, and I just took it over. And I was reading everything he had, and I was, detoxing, and I picked up a Bible, and I'm like, ooh, these stories make sense. They're writing about me. And so, mind you, Simi Valley, Ventura, California, has been notoriously known for being the safest city in the world because of the number of law enforcement around there. And so here I am walking down the street with white shorts on, pure hemp white shorts, because hemp is healthy, and no shoes, no socks, no shirt. And I had unbeknownst to me, made my way into a religious learning institute and started tearing things apart, digging in the ground, paying for God. So when the cops showed up, we started wrestling at some point, because I'm a martial artist. I've been a martial artist my whole life. Love weapons, love jujitsu, love Kali, I love Eskrima, love Hapkido. I love contact. I love controlled chaos.
You still do this?
Oh yeah, I still fight, still do weapons fighting. I'm a dog brother. I have some black belts, blah, blah, blah. All that stuff just comes with getting your ass kicked, falling down, and getting up again. But martial arts has been one of the greatest things in my life. But not so much that day, because in my psychotic brain, I wasn't trying to hurt anyone. But, when 5 sheriffs complain and, they go to the hospital, well, I found myself in handcuffs again, where I really became aware several days later of what my new predicament was. And I was standing in front of a judge and clean and sober, a little over a week, maybe 2 weeks clean and sober, and I was looking at a life sentence, 110 years in prison. And that's not the first time anyone had ever said that to me. When I was in prison years earlier, I'd found myself in front of a judge where they told me I was looking at a life sentence. And it's not because I'm, like a super badass criminal mind. It's because I'm an alcoholic and a dope fiend, that once I take a drink, I do some drugs, I lose all culpability. I can no longer differentiate between right and wrong. I'm in that, I'm trapped. And for many years, I think that being trapped in that place kind of kept me sane. Kept me not sane, rather. It just kept me alive. I was able to exist. I was able to sit in the misery and exist, and I didn't have a way out. I didn't know how to walk out of that, and so I fought that case for 3 years. I ended up going to Patton State Hospital. I beat that case, not guilty by reason of insanity, diminished capacity, and how that all happened is completely God. One of my ex-girlfriends came to visit me because my grandma went to her mom's funeral, and she was a lawyer, and she took my case. She had never fought one criminal case in her life. And she took the case, we fought the case, and I beat it. And I have been, even from day one in the jail cell to getting out, bailing out, fighting the case, beating the case, up until today, I have maintained an active role in 12-step recovery. I have discovered many walks of life, many cultures, many communities, and so I have blended, the process of recovery, which is combating disease, defects, disorders, with the same outlook and energy that I did into getting high. And like what we began with, here I am 18 years later, going on 19 years later. I've had the good fortune of good sponsorship and sponsoring countless people. Today my home group is Nada Glomla. We are an all A 12-step meeting, and it's men. You know, men's meetings, I don't get distracted. I stay grounded in the principles. And for me today, living in those principles, from the first principle of surrender, you know, because I had conceded to my innermost self before I surrendered. I knew my predicament before I stopped. But when I surrendered, when I capitulated from hope to hope, from away from hopelessness, I found the help that I needed, and that's where I found hope. And then I found truth, and then I found commitment, and I found all the values and principles of the 12 steps. And now I live them to the best of my ability. Sometimes I negotiate with them because I like outcomes to be a certain way. I like outcomes to be in my favor. You know, I have a relationship with my God, my higher power today. I am not Jesus Christ.
And thank God, right?
Thank
Because I
God.
realize it's just entirely too much responsibility.
It is. Can you imagine?
I ain't doing that.
No, yeah. I mean, if God was my size, I would have already broke his nose and blackened his eyes. But I wrestled with God, and you know what I left with? A limp.
Right.
I've been limping ever since, and it's probably one of my finer features. And
Humbling, to say the least.
it is. And so I'm constantly mindfully aware of my predicament. And I am sad to say that it was on 9/11/11 that I got to reside over my own, that same little boy. His name is Max, 8891. That same little boy on 9/11/11. I resided over his funeral because he was in a treatment center and he left early. And 2 hours later, he had overdosed and died. You know, there's a real phenomenon going on in this fentanyl. It's not drugs, it is poisoning, and it is purpose, and it is.
And I can't for the life of me figure out why. I don't understand why dealers would want to kill their fucking clientele, but you know, it's only a matter of when you die from that shit. Not if, when. Doesn't even make sense.
Well, you know, we as Americans are the largest consumers of drugs and alcohol on the planet. So there's going to be, if hypothetical the client, the user leaves, there's always going to be another one.
There's a rack of people take their place.
And so I've been working in the healthcare industry for about 15 years, on, off, in, around, and today I'm the COO at West Valley Detox Treatment, and we have a couple 6-bed IMS treatment centers, and I have fell in love with the work that goes on there because it's the most intense setting. Lower levels of care, you know, people get their freedom, they get their mind back, they get their heart back, they get to do those things, and I get to participate that in a different way. In the detox setting, I get to people when they're raw, they're real, they're like me, they're psychotic, they're stuck. Many of them are stuck.
Yeah.
And when they come into
I don't think people even really fully understand that unless they've been there. Like, I was just talking about it yesterday with somebody else. I was about 14 months clean when the dust settled, when the fucking fog lifted. Like, it was a physical feeling. I just remember sitting there and thinking, wow, these thoughts are rational. You know what I mean? Like, I'm no longer thinking in riddles and circles and fucking, dude, it was crazy.
You were crazy. I relate.
It's an understatement.
Yes, no, I totally relate.
Yeah.
Yeah. So today, here I am, you know, these years later, doing this little thing called life on life's terms, and it's beautiful. Yeah, it's really beautiful. I have a happy life, a wonderful wife. We have a 7-year-old son, and I get to participate in the community. I've received awards and recognitions and all these things that come with not picking up a drink, not shooting drugs, and being rigorously honest.
And hard work and perseverance too, because you don't get those awards just by getting clean.
No.
Let's face it. You put some effort into
Lots
that.
of effort.
You know. Fuck. I couldn't do it. All that schooling.
There's different levels for different people.
Yeah, 100%.
And here's, a little secret for me is I wanted to be a doctor when I was 9.
Oh, really?
That dream was taken from me. That hope was stolen, and getting clean and sober gave those hope and dreams back. And like I was telling you earlier, like last week I sat with a panel of 6 doctors from different parts of the school. This part wanted me in their PhD program. The other part wanted me in their clinical program. And I said no to the PhD program that I was just accepted in, and said yes to the master's, my second master's in healthcare administration, so I could get licensed with my specialty in addiction and recovery. There's not a lot out there.
Do more of what you're passionate about.
Way more about what I'm passionate about.
Right on, man. Well, thanks for doing this for me today.
Thanks for the beautiful work.
Appreciate it. That about wraps it up for today. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Broken Crayon Show here at Interstate Inc. Like, comment, share, help us spread the word so these voices can be heard. Peace.